I'm still deleting comments.
Really? How many are there?
I can't tell anymore.
Okay, hello, we are live, I think. Yes, we are. So we'll give it a few minutes for people to join and start our conversation with the guest today. So,
Hi, people.
Hello.
hello, I see people starting to join. Please write us in the comments hello and where you are from.
You can tell us about the weather. You can tell us about your dogs.
Oh
We
my God.
always like to hear about dogs.
Sorry. I've pressed it by mistake, but I'm so it's better that I that make this announcement now. If you can probably see some weird comments with some weird links being posted under our post on this live at the moment, please do not click anything. These are some scam profiles that are trying to get you on their page and insert your bank details. Please do not do that. Only links that are safe to click are posted from the Smiling Leash profile, not from other people. So please do not click anything that's not posted from us directly. I see people saying hello from Poland and from Indiana, USA, from Zagreb. Hello, everyone. That's so nice. We are trying this new timing for our live, so I think people from USA are able to join now. So very happy to see you. Hello.
Hi. Washington, Sussex in England. That's gonna be our most international talk, I think.
Yes, this seems so.
Quite nice.
Yeah. Yeah, we already have so many viewers. Hello, everyone. Once again, please do not click any links that you see posted from people on the comments. We are reporting everything to Facebook and trying to deal with as fast as we can, but we are just not as fast. So please do not click any links. These are scams trying to get your details. I think we can start. We have so many viewers already.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Hello once again. So I see people now from Barcelona and Canada. That's so amazing. Today we are joined by Marta. We'll introduce our guest in a moment. First, I want to introduce our project for people who are joining for the first time. So the Smiling Leash is a project dedicated to changing our perception of a walk with the dog. We want to show the world the way of walking that's good for both dogs and people. On our Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube, and also on our website, you'll find photos and videos of people having relaxing walks with their dogs on a long, loose, smiling, as we call it, leash. You'll also find useful tips and interesting facts about dogs. The project is led by me, Lyubov. I'm currently based in Bulgaria. Ina is in Slovenia, and Leti is in Spain. So today we are really happy to welcome Marta to our live. Marta started also very interesting project of her own. It's called Silent Conversations, with the hope of inspiring dog guardians to learn more about dog body language and communication. So today we'll be focusing on body language and communication of dogs. So Marta has volunteered at shelters for a significant number of years. Her experience with some of the most stressed, shy, and reactive dogs during volunteering inspired her to learn about dog behavior. She studied with Sheila Harper, completing her independently accredited IDB TS course. And Marta assisted in reactive dog social walks and puppy classes in the UK and now resides in the US. So welcome, Marta. I'm very happy to have you. And as I said, we'll be talking about dog body language and immense benefits of learning it ourselves as dog guardians. I think we truly believe that it changes our lives with dogs for the better. And so we want to ask you first, when did your interest in the dog body language start? When did you?
I think it was when I started volunteering at rescues, and
Right.
as I did more hours, I started sort of walking some of the dogs that were more challenging or that were experiencing a lot of stress, because dog rescues are quite stressful places, and especially for some dogs who have been through a lot already. And I started seeing more behaviors that I wanted to learn a lot more about it. So I then wanted to study dog behavior, and I read lots of books, some bad books, some good books, and I think I just wanted to absorb a lot. And I think that's when I found Turid's little book, very valuable book, but that kind of steered me and opened up a whole new world, basically. So
right. And so for our viewers, the book is called The Calming Signals, Dog Body Language. It's written by Turid Rugas. We also studied with Turid, and body language is a big part of what she teaches. I think, personally, I think it's a book that any dog guardian, any dog trainer can benefit from.
I think it still holds up, and although it's small, it's got a lot of information. I actually wish Turid would write a second volume that was even larger, which would be great. I just want to say hi to Dawn. I saw Dawn there, so I haven't seen some of these people in ages. So.
It's nice. Okay, so to our next question, Ina.
Yeah, I'm so sorry. I would just like to repeat for a second. As Luba said before, we have some spammers on our site, so they have been posting some links. We would really like to ask you not to click on these links, not to give them any information. That's why I've been a little bit absent, because I've been looking through and banning them and reporting them and so on. But I'm sure they will get tired of it, so just ignore them, and so will we. Yes, sorry about that. Just a little warning, just in case, so that nobody.
Yeah, it's getting quite busy.
Better to say something, I think.
Yeah, better twice than just once.
Yeah.
So yes, I agree, Martha. It's a fantastic book. So we can say that your journey started from reading books about canine behavior, and how did what you learned translate into silent canine conversations? How did you decide to start this project?
I think when I was studying, that sort of hit me the most, because we actually had to go and do lots of observation work with different places, and I went to observed training classes, and out of all of them, no one was teaching canine body language, and I sort of asked them why, and there was this sort of apathy that dog guardians they're not interested in that, and that always struck me as very strange. And then a few years back, I think I moved country, and then you have time on your hands to sort of think about things. And I think the other occasion I sort of saw dogs in a daycare sort of center. There's like these daycares within big sort of pet stores, and just watching the body language, and I just thought, it's one of the crucial things that every dog guardian should know. So I wanted some way of making it friendly and getting that message out there, and just inspiring people to learn more, because I do think people want to learn, and I think once they sort of the eyes are opened, it's like a door that opens and you can't close it again. You see everything, and the moment anyone, so I do think dog guardians are very interested in it, and once they see it, they really, they get into it more. But I do think it is getting better. I'm seeing more trainers sort of sharing that knowledge, and so that's quite good. It's getting better.
So I agree. It's fascinating as a dog guardian when you learn that there is this whole language made up of little signals. It's like, wow. You kind of get to know your dog in a completely different way, and it changes your relationship. And there are some other people, of course, spreading these messages, telling people about canine body language. But what makes your project special is that you use drawings, because most of us use either videos or photos, which of course is great, but you've decided to use drawings. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, I think I just wanted it to be friendly.
Mm-hmm.
It's something that I've always done anyway. I sort of worked in the creative industry before that, but I think it's just getting the footage. And I just wanted something that seemed friendly to sort of get people to, as an introduction, so it's not too intimidating. So I think that's about it. But
I think it works. It works really well.
Yeah.
Because that's the first thing that drew my eye to your website and to everything that you were doing. They were so nicely done, easy to understand, and I mean that I've used them in some presentations, and people really take really well to them. It's a really good job.
Yeah. I think it's just to sort of introduce people, but technically, if I get very nitty gritty, I'd most probably want a video or really get stuck into to observing, because obviously the pictures, it doesn't show you, a lot more, but it's an introduction. It's sort of just,
yeah.
And it's a good way of explaining and also getting people's attention.
Yeah.
And also, I want to say sometimes it's very hard to get pictures, get real photos of these situations. So drawing them is a very clever way of demonstrating them, right? Demonstrating those situations, those signals. And let's take a look at some of them right now with our viewers, because we just want to show, and we are big fans of Marta's project, so we want to show to all of them. So let's talk about a couple of signals together with you. So this one is head turn. So tell us a bit more about this, this signal. And
I think there are many sort of ones that you can sort of share if you're a beginner starting to learn about dog body language. But I like the head turn because it's very subtle, as you can see. Like, someone looking at it, they wouldn't think that the dog is communicating because he's turning his head. So what's going on? But I think the dog could do it overtly, so they can actually really make a point of moving their head, or sometimes it could be just very subtle. It could be for different reasons. So I think you always have to look at it in the context, because a head turn could mean multiple things in different situations. So the dog may be sort of wanting to calm a person down. So maybe it's very common when you take a photo of your dog and they turn their head because they're not feeling comfortable with you looking straight at them, putting all this attention on them. So they're trying to say, I don't want any trouble. I'm causing, that kind of stuff. But I think it's also a really nice one if people are also starting to observe dogs interacting with each other. It's one that you'll see very clearly. Normally the dogs will, especially if it's two new dogs that have just met and they're not really comfortable, they'll be sort of a little bit tall. You'll see their tails a little bit, but they'll sort of come in a curve and ears up, or they might be sort of, if they've got ears that hang, they might be a little bit forward. But you'll see they'll very deliberately, both of them will be turning their head. So they'll be negotiating before they do a turn around each other. So that's quite a nice one to see, because I think people have a very aha moment when they see two dogs very deliberately. You have to sort of, there is a back and forward between the dogs. So it's as to how that sort of interaction goes. But I think that's one of the sort of clearest ones when it's sort of people see that, they're kind of like, oh yeah, they are talking.
Yes, but it's also very subtle, as you said in the beginning. And I love when you start learning about dog body language, you suddenly say, oh, well, that means something. That's not just, a head turn. That does mean something. And subtle dogs are communicating to us all the time, and such subtle ways of communication always tell us something. So they're constantly communicating with us. I think this is fascinating, and I love your drawing.
So maybe it would be nice to say a few words about what the purpose of this is.
Yeah.
So why do dogs use all of these little tiny signals? What's the meaning? What are they trying to achieve most of the time, Martha?
I think they're just trying to resolve the situation. I think dogs are generally peaceful. Different dogs have different skill sets, but they're just trying to normally keep the peace, kind of, resolve the situation. So they're constantly working to try and keep things peaceful. And yeah, I don't know if you have any examples.
Well, it's fascinating how much they can do and how they have actually evolved to live in groups and to communicate in a way that avoids conflict. Because for survival in the long term, you don't want to fight. You don't want to be injured. You want to coexist peacefully and work together to survive as a group and as an individual. And that's what dogs are fantastic at. They're really good at survival, and they use communication to keep the peace so that it's easier for them to survive together. And I think that's a lesson that we humans could take from dogs. It couldn't hurt. And what they're trying to do is not only communicate to other dogs, they do this a lot with other dogs, but to us and even to things like objects. If something large appears in the street, like a new trash can that wasn't there yesterday, you might see your dog stopping and turning her head to the side and trying to communicate to this new, scary or weird trash can, just in case, to keep the peace. It's really, really interesting to watch, especially when we know what their intention is. And it's usually, come on, let's be friends. Let's take it easy. Let's avoid conflict if possible.
Yeah,
I think that's also very important to allow your dog to communicate, and that's one of the reasons also to understand it, because I think that makes it a little bit more fluid, and for them to be able to sort of communicate with you, it's
easier for them to
survive. Yeah, it helps them, and I think it also helps their skills, because they start using more of it the more you listen, more deliberate body language, which is good for, obviously for their skill level.
I also wanted to say that when we started learning about calming signals with Turid, she always says to us and to all her students that you have to concentrate on one signal at a time, not try to take everything in, because then it's a lot more difficult. And her turn was the first one that she said to us we should look at.
Definitely, because that's when you talk about context too. You're going to be looking at the whole body as well. So a head turn with what the ears and the eyes are doing could be very different to what a head turn with ears moving in a certain way, and that could also mean. So eventually you have to put everything together like a jigsaw puzzle, but I think start off with the basic signals. Yeah, definitely.
And let's look at another one. So here, if I can go just 1 second. So, and I also wanted to add that actually calming signals also mean that dog is probably uncomfortable in a certain situation. So that not only, so we need to look not only at the context of communication, but also in the context of the dog, how the dog is feeling. And I really like it because, for example, this another calming signal that we see now on the screen is curving, and some dogs that are maybe a little bit more worried will make a bigger curve. So variations for every individual dog and how they do the signals. So some of them are expressed stronger if they are a bit more worried, if they need a bit of more space. And what do you think about this?
Yeah, definitely. I think this one's quite important for us. So considering when you're walking on leash, that's why one of the bigger reasons that we use a longer leash is to allow the dog to have freedom of movement, so they can express themselves fully and authentically. So if you do have a longer leash and the dog has the skill set to do this, they will curve and sometimes even further. I've seen dogs who aren't sort of comfortable with something coming towards them, and because the person had a longer leash, the dog actually went around the person, used the person as a barrier because they weren't feeling safe with whatever was passing, and they've sort of also curved at the same time. So at least there the person can see what's happening and give the dog some support, curve with them, use their body as a bit of a barrier against the thing that they're not feeling comfortable with.
Definitely.
So it can be, and it's also the shoulders are very important in the dog. Sort of if you facing forward, that's not polite and friendly. And I think just a slight turn of the shoulder is important for the dog. So that's why the curving happens, because that's a little bit more polite. So people can also do that, just a slight. It doesn't even have to be large. I think that's the thing, is that people always sort of do these big gestures, but you don't realize how small the gesture is, because like just moving in like this could make a dog feel uncomfortable instead of moving back and just moving your shoulder ever so slightly. So that's one of the things you could do too if you're walking towards the dog that you see. I always am annoying because I sort of start curving a little bit to give the dog a bit of space. So if the dog is passing me with their guardian, I'm a bit annoying with. So if someone's walking with me, I'm always trying to bump them to the side a little bit. So just to keep the dog sort of comfortable. But I think in that picture you can kind of see that both dogs are a little bit unsure of each other, because the one dog's sniffing, the tails are a little bit up, so they're deciding to sort of just walk around each other, and the other dog is trying to sniff. But yeah, I don't know if there's anything else to add.
I think that maybe now everyone watching will start curving when they see a dog approaching, and it's very polite towards the dog, and the dog will understand you, but people might think that you're afraid of dogs. I do it all the time, and if I see that the dog that's walking towards me is really nervous, I might even, I don't know, cross the street. I look like someone who's really afraid of dogs. But I'm not. I'm just giving them space, That's something nice you can do for other dogs that you see in the street, and also your own dog. The next time you, I don't know, want to clip your dog's nails, maybe approach your dog in a curve. It might be easier. Or when you want to put their harness on, for example.
That's definitely. But I think I definitely have seen a few moments where dogs like realize what you're doing. They're like, and they're like, okay, I understand. And it's quite nice. And that's when you kind of see that little. I know that's not very technical or very, but I have seen that many times where they sort of like. But I think also when you start, I think people are very loud with their body language. I think, it can be very subtle. Like I said, just ever so slightly turning. It doesn't. You don't have to really curve, but it depends on the dog. There's some dogs with a big curve. You have to read the situation. So as you get better at reading it, I think you'll be better.
I think that is the key, isn't it? If you when you start understanding how they talk to each other, and then you realize that you can also help them by doing the same things, then is when this click happens, and you fully understand how to help them. That extra step is great.
And there's also, you have to listen, because there's always feedback. You might not get the answer you want to get, so you're going to have to listen and say, okay, I need to step back even further, or it's a constant changing variable conversation. So
And I really like the fact that you mentioned it's natural. So all dogs understand this naturally. You don't need to teach them that. You can teach yourself, but dogs, once given the opportunity, so once given longer leash and a little bit more space, they will naturally curve if they see another dog or another person. Just give them the opportunity.
Yeah, it depends on the dog too and their skill level and how much they've been allowed to practice their own language. It's just with humans, you learn from being around other people and how to speak, how to interact, and I think dogs need to practice those skills too, continuously, so giving them the opportunity to do that. But if they're not curving, then maybe you need to do it at a distance that they can cope with.
Yes.
Or, you're not putting them in the deep end, you're putting them in a level that they have the coping skills to deal with the situation.
Yes.
I see puppies that haven't had much experience generally, and I see them curve when, for example, a person is approaching that on. But if this same puppy would always be kept on a very short leash and never given the opportunity to curve, they won't, even later on in life if they had the chance. So sometimes we need to help them relearn these skills, even though they're natural to them. So if, for example, somebody has a dog on a very short leash and they put that dog on a long leash now, it's not necessarily will this dog start curving all by herself. She might need a little bit of help in the beginning, but she will get there.
Yeah.
And having some mentor dogs that have already developed rich body language, that are very calm and able to sort of teach for example, I think is very crucial. So this happened with my own dog, taken from rescue, very reactive to other dogs. Having an older dog that was very calm, that was of same size, really made a difference. So.
Namitha is saying in the comments that in India they are fortunate to be surrounded by street dogs to learn from them, and that's true. Street dogs are amazing at communication, and there's so much we can learn in terms of studies and science from these dogs, because they live the most natural life that a dog can live. They live alongside humans, but they're not as influenced by humans as our pet dogs are. And if anyone is interested, do look into the studies people are doing about street dogs, because they're really amazing. You can learn about communication, conflict resolution, how much they move around, what they do all day. It's really interesting stuff to learn about.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. And we have another comment, Jan, asking if this will be recorded. Definitely will be recorded, posted on our page. So please do not click any links. We're saying this once again. Please don't put any details. This is going to be on our page right after the live finished. You'll be able to share it. And Marta, back to you. So the last signal that we want to show during today's live is shake off. So I think this is one of the fun ones. I really like it because sometimes I want to do it myself. I feel. Tell us about this, and then we'll discuss it.
I don't know if they actually need to study him. I think there was. I was going to bring up. There was another tour team. I've forgotten the name of the website. I thought they did a pulse study on
field study. Yes.
Yeah, and they saw. They sort of noted that the pulse rate went down after a shake off, which was interesting. So I think you might have to test it on humans too and see if
I'm sure it does.
That's a good one. I think you'll see that often in lots of situations, and they kind of. It might be after a stressful event, the dog will shake off, and that we're sort of noting that they're moving on from whatever happened before. Sometimes it's not even that stressful. It's something that they've been concentrating on. Like I've seen dogs do that, like where they've really been sniffing something intensely, and then they do a shake off afterwards. You'll see it like if a dog is hugged and the dog didn't like being hugged. So that when they finally get free, they'll walk away and do a shake off. Thing to show that your dog was stressed and you shouldn't have just probably hugged them or done that. And I think also you'll see that with dogs when they're playing. Sometimes they'll get to a point where it's getting a little bit too much and they'll stop and the one will do a shake off and then the other one will do a shake off and they might end the sort of interaction. The other one I was thinking also is if the dog gets excited going for a walk, once you put the lead on, they might do a shake off just before, so they've gotten a little bit too excited. So I think that just shows like whatever happened before was a little bit, and they're coming back.
We just got the most hilarious comment. Diane is saying, my dogs do a shake off every time they get out of the car. Is my driving that bad? I don't think your driving is that bad, Diane, but this is something that happened, and dogs are really responsive to things in the environment. And of course, oh my God, we're getting out of the car. It's exciting, but also a little stressful, and they shake it off. So not every shake off means that something tremendously stressful happened. Yeah, it could be a little thing as well.
I think when we talk about stress, it's more the physiological stress. So it's not happy or sad. There's no positive or negative. Something that makes the dog immensely happy could be stressful.
Yes.
And something that is scary could be stressful, because I think the same hormones are going to go up and down. It's always homeostasis in your body with the parasympathetic and the sympathetic working. So excitement could also cause a little bit of, physiological stress. So it doesn't necessarily mean it's bad. But with the shake off with the car, it could be various reasons. Like you say, the dog could be excited with going for a walk, and now he's like, I'm out of the car, I'm going for a walk. Or maybe he didn't enjoy the journey. It's very variable. You'd have to really look at the complete picture, and I think it'd be difficult to be exact on that without further.
Yes, and on this point and on the point that you touched earlier, when you hug a dog and then it would do a shake off, I think just reading those calming signals and getting to know your dog, what your dog likes, what your dog dislikes, is really something that can improve your relationship with your dog and bring it on another level of mutual understanding, of not putting your dog in situations that are stressful for her. So calming signals can really make a difference in your relationship.
And it's probably in that instant, that example of someone hugging the dog, you'll see the shake off because that's quite noticeable, but there was most probably already stuff going on, like a lip lick or head turn and all sorts of things that might have already happened before the shake off to say that they're not comfortable. So
I can tell you when I see shake-offs a lot, because I do a lot of assessment of movement for dogs, because I'm a myotherapist, and one of the things that I do is video them over poles on the ground, and a lot of them do it just before they're going to start going over the poles, and I've got quite a few videos of them doing this, so they know that something is slightly strange or something that they're not going to be able to do physically very well, and they kind of prepare themselves for the exercise.
So it's showing that they might have some pain or
it could be
discomfort.
I think that shake-off is interesting because it shows that a dog is trying to manage her stress and how she's feeling. So we might have a dog that starts off in a really bad place with lots of issues. And in the beginning, we might not see many shake-offs. But then later on, as we're helping this dog feel better and do better and cope better with things that might be scary and stressful, we will see more of this as the dog is kind of gaining the ability to manage her own emotions and her own stress. That happened, for example, with my dog.
And my dog too.
See more shake-offs as he was kind of progressing and starting to cope with situations. better.
Definitely. And
Things were not scary anymore.
And the same happened with my dog. And once it started happening, I said, wow, we are getting somewhere. She's starting to process things in a different way. She's starting to settle down a little bit. So definitely with more with dogs that are not in a good place, this could be a sign of change.
It's definitely, I think when you don't see a lot of calming signals, that's a lot of information too. Was working in rescue, that was very crucial. I've sort of dealt with a lot of the dogs that were shut down and were scared. And some of the first notes, because we go through evaluation with the dogs, is we're actually looking for more communication. We're looking for blinking. You might not even get that communication. And I think you always have to be a bit wary when you don't have it, because it means, that dog's not comfortable to communicate fully to you. So it's, you have to be cautious there,
So one of the reasons why a dog might not be using a lot of these signals or might not use them very often is that they are either being ignored anyway. So that's one, or that they're uncomfortable to a degree where they feel like they can't communicate with you.
So I always feel really comfortable when you see a dog who feels comfortable enough to speak to you directly and sort of use all the body language. Because there's some dogs that aren't, and I think working in rescue, you see a lot of difference between the dogs. You really do. So.
Yes, and another point I wanted to touch on is when again we were talking about physical contact, and Marta was saying that a dog before, when you hugged her, maybe already was showing other signals. So why is it important to us? Why we should pay attention? Not to get to the point where the dog needs to be louder, where it's maybe showing the teeth or growling. We want to stop the uncomfortable situation before dogs need to scream for space. So it's especially relevant with children, when we have children in the house, and we recently wrote an article. So definitely paying attention to those tiny signals and learning them will also help you to avoid some uncomfortable situations in the house where it's growling or showing the teeth or plunging.
Yeah, Jo is saying that one of her dogs, I think her, is beginning to shake off more frequently. After a lot of work, he's beginning to learn to lower his own arousal level. Well, that sounds like good news. We don't want to cause shake-offs, but we like to see them sometimes in some situations.
So as dog trainers, should we learn body language? Is this something that is a must? Do you think?
Absolutely. I don't think you could do your job as a dog trainer or a behaviorist, because that's like the absolute fundamental thing. You're going to be observing a dog, and that's going to direct you in what the dog's feeling, how to approach what you're going to do to help this dog out, and also to gauge if they're getting better or not. It's absolute. You wouldn't be able to, and I think it's also interpretation, because there's certain TV personality type trainers that haven't had any education, and they might ignore the body language or totally misconstrue it. So I think being able to read it and sort of also explain it properly is also another thing that's important. But it should be for all professionals that work with dogs anyway, not just trainers. Walkers, groomers, anyone.
Groomers especially, yes.
Yeah, anyone who's working.
Groomers, definitely.
And vets, and I think the medical sort of community, I think, is changing a lot more to listening to dogs and sort of. And
what about a long leash, a smiling leash? Do you think that is a must, a necessary tool?
I think it is. It's absolutely necessary if you want your dog to be able to express themselves authentically. So much of their life is controlled. So when we go out on a leash, you want them to be able to communicate authentically, sort of problem solve, and also it's absolutely crucial for them to be able to smell and stop and sniff, because that's their primary, one of their primary senses. So they're going to be they're going to be learning about the world and trying to figure it out by sense. So it's important for them to navigate and be able to sort of navigate the environment with scent. So if you've got I've seen short leashes that the dog can't even sort of put their head down to the ground.
Yeah, like half a meter ones, yeah, right?
Yeah, and also people are sort of complaining that the dog's pulling, but there's no like choice, because the dog and the person can't sort of.
Yeah, this is something that some people don't get into your heads very easily. That the longer, the less pulling.
Yeah, that's the thing, because the dog can move freely, can interact. I was going to say something, but I've forgotten.
We talked about this, about leashes, in another talk. I can't remember which one it was, because we have some regulation here in Spain, and you can't have long leashes. If you go to a forest and you are alone and whatever, then you can use them. But if you're in the city, you have a requirement to have 2 meters. So
yeah,
it's really bad.
Yeah, I'm not too sure, because I think we've got regulation here in the US, but I see lots of people on flexi leads. If you are using a long leash, I know, as you know, we're always working the leash. You can take it shorter and loop it up.
Yeah,
it should always be. It's a sort of conversation again with your dog on the leash, because you're letting it out, and you can have it sort of loop it up and take it shorter, and then let it out when you can, when it's safe.
Yeah, because if you don't have it, you can't use it. So yeah.
That's what I was also going to bring up too. Is I think the dog also has a space bubble too when they're out on leash, and I think sometimes our body language and what we do, how we move with the dog, we can either push the dog accidentally into something that they don't want to go to. We could block their escape routes, because sometimes dogs use escape routes, like we talked about curving, and they might naturally choose to move away from something. So they're using their problem-solving skills, but you might block them with your body. So having that longer leash is giving them the space to sort of move naturally and sort of communicate fully. So
that's such
and make choices, because choices keep you sane. Us as well as our dogs. What happens a lot, and it's quite unfortunate, because people really mean well, is if you go to a public place where there are lots of dogs, some people will say, can our dogs meet and can they sniff? And then they will try to maneuver their dogs to meet each other straight, face on short leashes.
Yeah, and the dogs are both.
And the dogs really don't want that. Even if they don't have a problem with other dogs, even if they are really nice pups, they're not feeling it. If we gave them the option, they would most probably either just walk away, maybe it's not the moment, or they would slowly curve, do a lot of communication before they even come into close contact, and they would do it nicely and in a way that's polite to the dogs. And lovely to watch if you know about calming techniques. Then you can see, he's doing that and she's doing this. It's really cute to watch.
But also allowing them to practice that, because there's some dogs that haven't had that opportunity, and that's all they have every time they meet dogs. It's like, poof.
Yeah.
And then you go to a dog park and they're just repeating what they've learned and what they've So it's having.
It's a very human way of meeting, because how we is like look someone straight in the eye and shake their hand and be all like, confident.
Really polite in our way.
That's polite for humans, but it's not polite for dogs. Ignoring each other a little bit in the beginning is the polite way of greeting another dog. If you're a dog. It's it's something that dogs know naturally, but we have to learn about it somehow.
And I also wanted to make a point where Marta was saying we are blocking the escape routes, and that's such a good point. Recently, Amber Batson, we've been on her seminar, and she's been talking about it, where especially with more reactive dogs that get stressed easily, having an option to flee instead of fighting is very important. And this is where the long leash comes on very handy, because the dog might very easily choose to just avoid the situation, maybe by curving, instead of on a shorter leash, the same dog might choose to lunge and bark.
I think when you're working on a longer leash, there's a lot more that goes into it. It's not just the dog, it's giving the dog space to be able to move, but you're also, it's kind of like one of those 3-man race where you don't have a choice, you're tied and you have to work together. So working on leash, like, I don't think people realize their body language is also, informing. So how you maneuver with your dog, the space you give them to maneuver, how friendly your body language is. And sometimes people are just marching with their dog and they don't realize you're actually pushing your dog into a situation they don't want to go into, because they don't have the option to slow down, sort of start thinking about things. So
That's a good point.
Do you know what it reminds me of? It reminds me of partner dancing.
Yeah.
A modern way, because it used to be one person leads, the other person follows. And now it's not like that anymore in dancing. And of course, it's not like that in the dog world either. So it's a cooperation.
I think both sides should be giving feedback, and both should be sort of working together and saying, okay, this isn't working. Let's try this. Both communicating. And
so how will someone go about learning more about body language and long leashes and things like that?
Oh, I don't know. It depends how much detail you want to go into. For long leashes, it's difficult because I'm seeing people starting to use long leashes. I think it's very fashionable to have biathane long leashes, but people don't have the understanding of what goes into it, because there's a lot more from knowing your dog, the stress levels, the environment, how you use how you use the leash. So I think for that, I'd go see someone. I know Turid teaches. I would see Sheila Harper, because she also teaches. I don't know if the only thing you could find is sort of students that teach, past students will most probably be teaching. For the leash, it's difficult, because I think those are the two trusted sources, I would say, for who've had a long period of experience sort of using long leashes and know everything that goes into that. Body language, I guess you could start reading books, and again, too, if you wanted to try further study. I think that's what got me to study with Sheila. I think I went to some sort of smaller courses, and Sheila, and I think it's Winnie who works with Sheila, they sort of, when I saw them sort of detailing and really analyzing and telling you what was going on, I was like, I think when I went to study with them, it was like, that was like so crucial, because they were giving you so much information of what was going on and the analysis of what the dogs were doing. So I think it's difficult, because this dog industry is strange. So finding patients.
But I'll put your website for people on the screen. I think it's a great place to start learning about body language. Someone mentioned in the comments earlier that with kids, it's very easy using your website, using your beautiful illustrations to learn about dog body language. And you also write very nice articles explaining different situations and how it works. So definitely for people watching, check out Marta's website. It's a great way to start. And another thing, I think what already Letty mentioned earlier, is when you're starting to learn body language, choose one signal to look at, and start looking at your own dogs, and then observe it in other dogs. Then choose another one, and then more. And so you'll expand your knowledge gradually. There is no rush to start understanding everything in one bit.
You're not going to understand it all in one go. And I think as you practice more and as you go and look, I think videos are very good. If you can watch them again, because you can slow them down and replay them and just write down everything you see without saying, oh, that dog's happy or that dog's, without any description, just say head turn. When start off with that, and then you can expand slowly. And I think the more practice you have, the more you'll start seeing, and you can go into more depth. But I think, start with the main.
That's how we were taught as well. Observations first, interpretations later.
Yeah.
And then when you get used to it, then it happens quickly. You can see it and you know it. But in the beginning, it's really good to kind of separate the two and go step by step.
Yeah.
Yes, and when it comes with videos, Surit was saying us, you watched it once, you think you understood it. No, watch again. No, watch again. Maybe first look at one dog, then at another dog, and it's fascinating. But still, I'm watching one video sometimes 10 times, and I'm still finding some other nuance that I haven't seen before.
Yeah. Definitely. I find it's like as you've had more practice, it's almost the other way around. Like you pick up what's going on, but you have to kind of stop your brain and think like, why? What is that exactly? Because I think you've already seen it, but you kind of don't understand.
You haven't.
Yeah.
So it's in the back somewhere.
Yeah, it's almost like your brain has to catch up afterwards. Like to say, oh, actually, this was happening because of this.
Exactly. So we've already mentioned this here and there, but maybe just as a recap. If a dog guardian decides to learn about canine body language, how will this help in the daily lives we have with our dogs?
I think firstly, just your understanding, I think it's going to open a door, and I think you might have a different vision of your dog, because I think it's so easy dogs get labeled the whole time, oh, he's being stubborn, he's guilty, or and I think when you look at it, you might actually see a whole different story. So I think, you might have a little bit more empathy, or you might have a bit more understanding of what is actually happening. I think that's very crucial. But not only that, but you want your dog to sort of express themselves authentically. And like we said, I think your relationship opens up when your dog actually sees, oh, okay, she's listening. I'm going to try more conversation, and I think it sort of opens up your relationship to another level. I don't know if I can think of all the things. There's so many.
I think it's a lovely feeling when you get, when they know that you understand them. It's just, there's nothing better.
Yeah, no, definitely.
Yeah, another point is when we are learning something new or some daily tasks, for example, like nail clipping. We've discussed it recently with girls that it is a struggle for most dog parents to clip the nails, but knowing the calming signals helps you not to push the boundaries with the dog. You see, okay, the dog is a little uncomfortable here. Okay, I'll stop and try it next time. Or I'll just come around, I'll approach my dog from the side, not looking at it directly, maybe make my eyes a little bit softer. Some things that really help you in those daily tasks, but also in learning. You can see the dog maybe during even if we are teaching the long leash, you see, okay, the dog is now no longer comfortable. We'll stop it here. We don't want to push the dog into being too uncomfortable, so it will make the learning ineffective or even damaging for the dog. So, so many different situations, and in all of them, it's very, very beneficial if you know the body language.
It even comes down to safety. For example,
definitely.
In situations that can be potentially dangerous, it can be a dog with another dog. It can be dogs and children. In all of these situations, if you learn how to read dogs' body language, you can prevent dangerous things from happening. Most of the time, dogs will tell you in 10 different ways that they're uncomfortable before they even attempt anything as a little aggressive. but you have to know what they're telling you.
Yeah, I think it's also that they will, like we mentioned before, that they will start communicating with you more. So they'll help you, hopefully not getting into these situations. But I think also, I used to be one of those people too, where I had lots of dogs, but I didn't know body language. You sort of knew, you had like a sort of gut feeling, but like if you had two dogs meeting, you were kind of going in there like, but they're going to like, and I think lots of people are like, they don't know what they're seeing or what the two dogs are communicating to each other, because it's going to be a constant back and forth. So if you don't know, if you're going to just walk into the dog park with your dog and just, let them off, and you don't see what conversation is actually happening, because there always is going to be a back and forth between the two dogs. And if you know what you're looking at, you'll start seeing that sort of back and forth. Some dogs may not be as good with that sort of communication back, so you'll kind of notice that, and you'll see the differences. And I think it's good for dogs to also keep practicing their social skills, being able to express themselves to humans, to dogs, they're growing their skills, they're able to keep, and their confidence too. Your dog feels comfortable to be able to tell you and express itself, then that's helpful for everyone.
For sure.
So let's just finish with a question that's very smiling Leash. So if we are taking a nice walk with our dog, what are the signs, the signals we are looking for if we want to know, for example, whether our dog is enjoying the walk? What kind of body language would you kind of expect to see?
I think with body language, it's always good to look at movement, how flowing, if it's slow, fast tempo. And I think there's always extremes, whether the movement is really fast or there's no movement. I think those two extremes you've got to worry about. But in the middle, when they're comfortable, you'll see lots of flowing, ease of movement. The tail might sort of flow, or it might just be sort of you look at the height, it's sort of maybe the same height as the back.
Middle
Middle of the road kind of. But you want to see them moving. But the main thing is also if they're feeling comfortable, they're going to interact with their environment. So they're going to, mosey around. They're going to go and sniff something. They might pee. They might mark. You want to see them really feeling comfortable and interacting with the environment. So sniffing, peeing, doing all that natural behavior, and just looking very loose.
So on the other end of the spectrum, what would we expect to see if a dog is not feeling comfortable? For example, if the dog is anxious or afraid, or if the environment is just too much.
So I think you could go for both. So then you'll see both spectrums. So if they're really scared, they might really slow down, start getting smaller. Normally their body will lower, more crunched. You might see not as much movement. Normally you'll most probably see calming signals like lip licks, head turns, and things like that. And then on the other side of the spectrum, so I think it's like in the middle is great, but on the other side of the spectrum, so you have sort of not as much movement and it's more crunched. And then the other side, it might be jittery and kind of, it's
all over the place.
It doesn't seem so. Like my dog, when he didn't like the more busier part of town, and the minute we started, there was less sniffing. He was starting to walk faster. He most probably will start pulling on lead. Scanning. You'll see their ears going up, but they're not going to interact with anything. They're going to be sort of looking around,
looking for trouble. Basically.
But sometimes people can miss that because you're both walking really fast, and the dog, you don't really see much. The dog's just moving. The dog's not interacting, but you don't see with their eyes, and their ears are moving. I think people always, because that doesn't look like much. It's like, the dog's just walking fast, and sometimes people don't realize.
And so we always tell people, slow down, observe your dog, give your dog space. Also, again, you'll learn so much about your dog habits or what your dog likes and dislikes. It's it's like a silent conversation is always happening. We can say so. It's really we can observe that. Yeah.
It just depends how in tune you are, and if you are watching and sort of. So I think that's why it's worth not putting in the headphones in, not putting the phone away, and just it being a time of connection and sort of hanging out with your dog in your own lead. So yeah, definitely.
Yeah, so true.
Absolutely. So before we wrap up, we can take a question or two, Martha, if you're okay with that.
Yeah, no, sure.
I just noticed one more, a recent one, and then we'll look for the other questions if there were any more. I can see a dog. I can see another dog. Yes, Christine is asking, is licking each other's tongue a calming signal? My small dogs do that often among each other. Lots to unpack, probably.
Yeah, it really, I think it depends. We'd have to most probably see the thing. We can't give a correct answer, but I don't know if it might be a sort of soothing thing, depending how young the dog is. I don't know if maybe they're self-soothing each other. But obviously, I think every situation, I think we have to give a disclaimer that you can't really give the full idea without observing it properly. What do you guys think?
Well, I think that there are two things that are interesting. First of all, a lip lick just all by itself is a calming signal. So if we see a dog quickly licking her nose or her lips, like a quick I had to demonstrate, then usually this is communication, unless she's eating or there's food right there. It's usually communication. Dogs will do it if we maybe get too close too quickly. And they might, if somebody approaches a dog and approaches a dog's face really quickly in a way that's already uncomfortable, you might see a dog lick your face. And that doesn't necessarily mean he's happy. It might mean that I want you to calm down a little bit. This was a bit too much for me. This is one of the possible interpretations. Of course, we can't know exactly what's going on. Even with a video, we would have to watch it 10 times and talk about the dogs and their lives and everything before we could give an answer that would be definite.
So sometimes it can be a snippet, but you don't know the full picture.
Yeah, exactly.
Was the question two dogs licking each other?
Each other's face. Two small dogs lick each other's faces often, apparently.
Okay. I don't know, it could be
each other's tongue.
Tongue even, yeah.
I've seen dogs doing that because I know from puppyhood, sometimes puppies will sort of lick
mom's face.
But I don't know. I thought maybe it might be a soothing sort of like a mutual thing where they just, soothing each other. But I'm not too sure if that's what is happening or not. Yeah.
It could be many things.
Yeah.
They are adult dogs, 5-6 years old. Christine added, so not puppies anymore.
Not puppies, yeah. Okay.
Marianne is asking about the best way for two dogs to meet when walking.
I think I would. Well, if you are getting dogs to meet, I would work on some social walks and do it gradually. I don't know if the situation would be just two dogs meeting. You'd have to really know the dogs, that each dog is able to cope and what their skills are. And obviously then there would be a loose leash and you'd must recurve with the dogs. But I don't think I would encourage people to just go out to strangers and I think I'd rather work with known dogs and work on a social walk and slowly introduce them that way.
Some distance.
Yeah, and you could start with, I don't know, if we could have a whole episode just on social walks.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot more complexity about how you set that up and how, depending on the dog and the situation.
We wrote an article about social walks recently, and we linked another one written by our mentor and teacher Turi Druga, so you can look for it on our page on our website.
Yeah.
So Marianne, it's really not a simple question. There are so many different answers. It depends on each dog. It depends on where you are. It depends whether they're on leash or off leash. So many. Are they young? Are they old? Are they experienced with other dogs? But one thing we know is we want to give our dogs some space and some time so that they can communicate and they can make some decisions on their own. So we never want to force them into interactions. And we have to make sure that both dogs are okay, because sometimes one dog really wants to approach, but the other dog is not up for it at all.
And
so reading them is important.
Yes, and observe the other dog's calming signals too. So if it's uncomfortable, it will tell you probably already on bigger distance. So they use their bodies. They don't need to be face to face to communicate. That's why we say distance sometimes is a good thing. They will see each other's signals even on distance.
I think what I would avoid is if you see a person coming at you fast with their dog on a short leash, you can't see what the dog is communicating because the person is on a short. I think I'd avoid, unless you know that person and you know the dog and you know everything about that. I would avoid that. I would rather just choose another route and say, thanks. So
I agree. Definitely. Especially if there's painful equipment involved, because if the other dog is in pain because of a choke chain or something, and unable to communicate and feeling pain while interacting with another dog is a recipe for disaster. Really.
Yeah, that is too. And I think there's other sort of equipment too that isn't like the head halters. The dog can't do head turns. He can't communicate fully with the other dog. So I think.
And they also cause pain, a lot of pain. Head halters hurt. That's why they work. In a way.
I think anything that is forcing is going to cause pain. But I think it's just if you're not seeing that communication from the other side and you're seeing the person's handling of, how the person is walking their dog and how if they're not allowing their dog to, it's people don't really know, so they don't realize what they're doing. So they might not realize the dog is communicating in that. But I think I'd avoid that. Sorry, I'm rambling on now.
No, you're not. You're answering questions. We have more questions. I think we might do one or two more, if that's okay with everyone.
Yeah, let's combine the last two. They are about what signals people can use with fearful dogs. So one person is asking what signals he can use to try and catch fearful lost dog, and the person, another Jessica, is a groomer, and she's asking what signals she can use to tell the dogs that she's not going to hurt them. She used to turn her head and close her eyes. So what signals can we use with fearful dogs and the groomer?
I think first off, to start off, whatever signals you use, you have to listen to what the dog says. You might give signals and the dog might say, no, thanks. And you have to listen to that and you have to respect that. If you're dealing with a dog that's lost, you've got to realize that dog is going to be incredibly stressed and fearful. I think in those situations, any dog that is fearful, you've got to be cautious because there's a big chance they might bite. So for any dog that is fearful, first thing is space, and not approaching is giving them space before you even give any body language signals. And then secondly is obviously eyes. You can blink, scrunch your eyes a little bit, just ever so subtly turning your body side on so that they see your shoulder. And your movements also has to be really sort of calm and slow, especially with a dog that is really stressed. You want them to see what you're doing. You don't want to make any sudden movements. I think both of those, you're going to have to listen. There's no chance that all your body language. I've had loose dogs where I could do all the best body language, but they still weren't going to feel 100%. So I had to listen and give them space. I think I've had ones where I've just dropped treats and I'm not looking at them, and I just get them to follow me if you can, rather than trying to get close to them quickly. So I think it's listening, and it's always the basics: eyes, direction of the body, keeping your movements very calm, very quiet, if you can.
I've heard stories where people would end up lying down on the ground.
Yeah.
And at that point, the lost dog would feel like they can approach.
Yeah.
So not only turning sideways and looking away, but lying on the ground.
Yeah.
Sometimes it depends on the situation, of course.
I'm very cautious with lost dogs because, like I said, that is a situation where you could get bitten. So I'm very cautious about what advice you give, because I think you have to really read and listen to the situation, because I don't know, you have to understand what's going on.
Yeah, and I'd like to put on the book by Turi Drugos on Talking Terms with Dogs, Calming Signals, where she describes different situations and different calming signals and how they work. And this is a really small book, so I think in both those questions, so with fearful dogs and with groomers, you'll be able to find some help in this book. So definitely look it up and take a look at it. And from my side, I think with groomer is, again, everything Marta mentions. You can do so many signals with your eyes inside, and your movements, I think, are essential, that they are very smooth and slow, and but listening to the dog. So if just using it's not going to be enough.
Yeah, sometimes it's not about, okay, so the dog is giving me calming signals. Maybe my response should be, I'm going to change the situation.
Yeah.
Not I'm going to do my own calming signals. But if the dog is telling, this is not working for me, okay, we take a break. I will, that's one of the basic ones. When the dog is telling you she's uncomfortable, you might want to take a break. And the dog will find it much easier to cooperate with someone who listens.
I was going to say, Dawn is asking, I know Dawn, she's asking if she could mention Rosie Lowry's book, and I was actually going to mention, that's actually also another book. It's on my website too, in the resources. Rosie goes through a lot of how day to day she uses body language in all sorts of situations.
Great.
Thanks, Dawn.
Yeah, thank you.
So we could talk for hours, but maybe it's time to wrap this up slowly. Martha, thank you so very much for joining us.
Thank you very much.
We can see that this is an interesting topic, and there might be some questions afterwards too. So we'll see if we can answer some of them in the comments later on.
Yeah. Great. Thank you very much, Martha.
Thanks very much.
Thank you for everyone who joined in. Today was truly international live. We are very happy to see people from all continents. So very happy to have you guys with us. And thank you for joining in. Thank you all. Again, thank you to Marta. Amazing live. Enjoyed it.
Thanks very much, you guys.
Okay. And we're going to stop the live now. Bye.
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 Bye, everyone.
Bye.